Hi, baby. So, as you know, like, because you kind of exposed my surprise, I'm going to be reading your book to you so it's easier for you to read because I just know that you can't really focus sometimes and you are better at listening than like actually reading. So, I thought this would be perfect and I hope that you enjoy this. And I'm obviously sick right now while I'm recording the first chapter at least, or probably the first 3 chapters because I think I'm gonna record them all right now. But I just want you to know that I love you and I really hope that you like this and appreciate it. But yeah, and I'm sorry if I pronounce any words wrong because there might be a chance I pronounce them wrong, so just bear with me. But yeah, I love you. Okay, I'm gonna start reading. Okay. Salt to the Sea. I have to. Okay, so the first pages are like the intro, and then you have to look at the book. Look at the map, the pre-war overview from 1936. So you should probably take a look at that. Okay. Jonah. My guilt is a hunter. My conscience mocked me, picking fights like a petulant child. It's all your fault, the voice whispered. I'm so sorry. It's all your. Wait. I quickened my pace and caught up with our small group. The Germans would march us off the field. But this is probably a bad time to record this. I am so sorry. I quickened my pace and caught up with our small group. The Germans would march us off the field road if they found us. Roads were reserved for the military. Evacuation orders hadn't been issued, and anyone fleeing East Prussia was branded a deserter. But what did that matter? I became the deserter 4 years ago when I fled from Lithuania. I had left in 1941. What was happening at home? Were the dreadful things whispered in the streets true? We approached the mound on the side of the road. The small boy in front of me whimpered and pointed. He had joined us 2 days prior, just wandered out of the forest alone and quietly began following us. Hello, little one. How old are you? I had asked. 6, he replied. Who are you traveling with? He paused and dropped his head. My Omi. I turned towards the woods to see if his grandmother had emerged. Where is your Omi now? I asked. The wandering boy looked up at me, his pale eyes wide. She didn't wake up. So the little boy traveled with us, often drifting just slightly ahead or behind, and now he stood, pointing to a flap of dark wool beneath the mirage of the snow, or of snow. I waved the group onward, and when everyone advanced, I ran to the snow-covered heap. The wind lifted a layer of icy flakes, revealing the dead blue face of a woman, probably in her 20s. Her mouth and eyes were hinged, fixed in fear. I dug through her iced pockets, but they had already been picked. The lining of her jacket, I In the lining of her jacket, I found her identification papers. I stuffed them in my coat to pass on to the Red Cross and dragged her body off the road and into the field. She was dead, frozen solid, but the thought of tanks rolling over her was more than I could bear. I ran back to the road and our group. The wandering boy stood in the center of the path, snow falling all around him. She didn't wake up either? He asked quietly. I shook my head and took his mittened hand in mine, and then we both heard it in the distance. Bang. Florian. That might be pronounced wrong. Yeah, Florian. Fate is a hunter. Engines buds in a swarm above. Der Schwarz Todd. The Black Death, they called. I had hid beneath the trees. The plains were visible, but I felt them. Close. Trapped by darkness both ahead and behind. I weighed my options. An explosion detonated and death crept closer, curling around me in fingers of smoke. I ran. My legs churned, sluggish, disconnected from my racing mind. I willed them to move, but my conscience noosed around my ankles and pulled down hard. You are a talented young man, Florian. That's what my mother had said. You are, you are Persian. Make your own decisions, son. My father said, or said my father. Would he have approved of my decisions, of the secrets I now carried across my back? Amidst this war between Hitler and Stalin, would mother still consider me talented or criminal? Talented or criminal? The Soviets would kill me, but how would they torture me first? The Nazis would kill me, but only if they uncovered the plan. How long would it remain a secret? The questions propelled me forward, whipping through the cold forest, dodging branches. I clutched my side with one hand, my pistol with the other. The pain surged with each breath and step, releasing warm blood out of the angry wound. The sound of the engines faded. I had been on the run for days, and my mind felt as weak as my legs. The hunter preyed on the fatigued and weary. I had to rest. The pain slowed me to a jog and finally a walk. Through the dense trees in the forest, I spied branches hiding an old potato cellar. I jumped in. Bang. Amelia. Shame is a hunter. I would rest a moment. I had a moment, didn't I? I slid across the cold, hard earth towards the back of the cave. The ground quivered. Soldiers were close. I had to move but felt so tired. It was a good idea to put branches over the mouth of the forest cellar, wasn't it? No one would trek this far off the road, would they? I pulled the pink wooden cap down over my ears, and tugged my coat closer to my throat. Tugged my coat closer near my throat. Despite my bundled layers, January's teeth bit sharp. My fingers had lost all feeling. Pieces of my hair, frozen crisp to my collar, tore as I turned my head. So I thought of August. My eyes dropped closed, and then they opened. A Russian soldier was there. He leaned over me, with a light poking my shoulder with his pistol. I jumped, frantically pushing myself back. Frau Yuleen, he grinned, pleased that I was alive. Call me Frau Yuleen. How old are you? I'm so sorry if I'm pronouncing this wrong. 15, I whispered. Please, I'm not German. Niche this. I'm so sorry. He didn't listen, didn't understand, or didn't care. He pointed his gun at me and yanked my ankle. Shoot, shh, Fraulein. He lodged the gun under the bone of my chin. I pleaded. I put my hands across my stomach and begged. He moved forward. No, this would not happen. I shoot my head. Shoot me. I turned my head. Sorry. Shoot me, soldier. Please. Bang. I'm so stuffy. Alfred. Fear is a hunter. But brave warriors, we brush away fear with a flick of the wrist. We laugh in the face of fear, kick it like a stone across the street. Yes, Hanlor, I compose these letters in my mind first, as I cannot abandon my men as often as I think of you. You would be proud of your watchful companion, Sailor Alfred Frick. Today I saved a young woman from falling into the sea. I was nothing really, but she was so grateful. She clung to me, not wanting to let go. Thank you, soldier. Her warm whisper lingered in my ear. She was quite pretty and smelled like fresh eggs, but there have been many grateful and pretty girls. Oh, do not be concerned. You and your red sweater and foremost in my thoughts are foremost in my thoughts. How fondly, how insistently I think of my Hinloer and red sweater days. I'm relieved you are not here to see this. Your sugared heart could not bear treacherous circumstances here in the port of Goddenham. At this at this very moment, I am guarding dangerous explosives. I'm serving Germany well. Only 17, yet carrying more valor than those twice my years. There is talk of an honor cemetery, but I'm too busy fighting for the Fuhrer. Fuhrer. I'm sorry, to accept honors. Honors are for the dead, I've told them. We must fight while we are alive. Yes, Hannelore, I shall prove to all of Germany there is indeed a hero inside of me. Bang. I abandoned my mental letter and crouched in the supply closet, hoping no one would find me. I did not want to go outside. Florian. I stood in the forest cellar, my gun fixed on the dead Russian. The back of his head had departed from his skull. I rolled him off the woman. She wasn't a woman, she was a girl in a pink woolen cape, and she had fainted. I scavenged through the Russian's frozen pockets and took cigarettes, a flask, a large sausage wrapped in paper, his gun, and ammunition. He wore 2 watches on each wrist, trophies collected from his victims. I didn't touch them. Crouching near the corner of the cellar, I scanned the cold chamber for signs of food, but saw none. I put the ammunition in my pack, careful to not disturb the small box wrapped in the cloth. The box. How could something so small hold such power? Wars had been waged over less. Was I really willing to die for it? I gnawed at the dried sausage, savoring the saliva it produced. The ground vibrated slightly. This Russian wasn't alone. There would be more. I had to move. I saw the top of the soldier's flask and raised it to my nose. Vodka. I opened my coat, then my shirt, and poured the alcohol down my side. The intensity of the pain produced a flash in front of my eyes. The ruptured flesh fought back, twisting and pulsing. I took a breath, bit back a yell, and tortured the gash with the remainder of the alcohol. The girl stirred in the dirt. Her head snapped away from the dead Russian. Her eyes scanned the gun at my feet and the flask in my hand. She sat up, blinking. Her her pink hat slid from her head and fell slightly into the dirt. The side of her coat was streaked with blood. She reached into her pocket. I flew down the flask and grabbed the gun. She opened her mouth and spoke. Polish. Amelia. The Russian soldier stared at me, mouth open, eyes empty, dead. What had happened? Crouching in the corner was a young man dressed in civilian clothes. His coat and shirt were unfastened, the skin bloodied and bruised to a deep purple. He held a gun. Was he going to shoot me? No. He had killed the Russian. He had saved me. Are you okay? I asked, barely recognizing my own voice. His face twisted at the sound of my words. He was German. I was Polish. He would want nothing to do with me. Adolf Hitler had declared that Polish people were subhuman. We were to be destroyed so that the Germans could have the land they needed for their empire. Hitler said Germans were superior and would not live among Poles. We were not Germanizable, but our soil was. I pulled a potato from my pocket and held it out to him. Thank you. The dirt pulsated slightly. How much time had passed? We have to go, I told him. I tried to use my best German. In my head, the sentences were intact, but I wasn't sure they came out that way. Sometimes when I spoke German, people laughed at me, and then I knew my words were wrong. I lowered my arm and saw my sleeve, splattered with Russian blood. Would this ever end? Tears stirred inside of me. I did not want to cry. The German stared at me, a combination of fatigue and frustration, but I understood. His eyes on the potato said, Amelia, I'm hungry. The dried blood on his shirt said, Amelia, I'm injured. But the way he clutched his pack told me the most. Amelia, don't touch this. Jonah. We trudged farther down the narrow road. 15 refugees. The sun had finally surrendered and the temperature followed. A blind girl ahead of me, Ingrid, held a rope tethered to a horse-drawn cart. I had my sight, but we shared a handicap. We both walked into a dark corridor of combat, with no view of what lay ahead. Perhaps her lost vision was a gift. The blind girl couldn't hear and smell the things that the rest of us could. Did she hear the last gap of the old man as he slipped under the wheels of a cart several kilometers back? Did she taste coins in her mouth when she walked over the fresh blood in the snow? Heartbreaking. They killed her, said a voice behind me. It was the old shoemaker. I stopped and allowed him to catch up. The frozen woman there, he continued. Her shoes killed her. I keep telling them, but they don't listen. Poorly made shoes will torture your feet, inhibit your progress, and then you will stop. He squeezed my arm. His soft red face peered out from beneath his hat. And then you will die, he whispered. The old man spoke of nothing but shoes. He spoke of them with such love and emotion that a woman in our group had crowned him the shoes poet. The woman disappeared a day later, but the nickname survived. The shoes always tell the story, said the shoe poet. Not always, I countered. Yes, always. Your boots. They are expensive. Well made. That tells me you came from a wealthy family. But the style is one made for an older woman. This tells me they probably belong to your mother. A mother sacrificed her boots for her daughter. That tells me that you are loved, my dear. That tells me you are loved, my dear. And your mother is not here, so that tells me that you are sad, my dear. The shoes tell the story. I paused in the center of the frozen road and watched the stubbly old cobbler shuffle ahead of me. The shoe poet was right. Mother had sacrificed for me. When we fled from Lithuania, she rushed me to Insterberg and, through a friend, arranged for me to work in the hospital. That was 4 years ago. Where is Mother now? I thought of the countless refugees and trekking. I thought of the countless refugees trekking towards freedom. Wait, what? Trekking towards freedom. Sorry. How many millions of people had lost their home and family during the war? I had agreed with Mother to look to the future, but I secretly dreamed of returning to the past. Had anyone heard from my father or brother? The blind girl put her face to the sky and raised her arms in signal. Then I heard them. Planes. I'm going to move that iPad really quick. 1 second. This is your new view for now. Because I need to lay down. I don't want to lay this way anymore. But you're on the phone actually right now. Isn't that so awesome? Yeah, okay. So I'm sorry. I'll keep reading. Florian. We had barely crawled out of the potato cellar when the Polish girl began to cry. She knew I was going to leave her. I had no choice. She would slow me down. Hitler aimed to destroy all Poles. They were slavey. Oh my god. They were Slavic, branded inferior. My father said the Nazis had killed millions of Poles. Polish intellectuals were savagely executed in public. Hitler set up the extermination camps in German-occupied Poland, filtering the blood of innocent Jews into the Polish soil. Hitler was a coward. That had been one thing father and I agreed upon. Posey, bit, she begged, alternating between Polish and broken German. I couldn't stand to look at her, at the streaks of dead Russian splattered down her sleeve. I started to walk away, her sobs slapping behind me. Wait, please, she called out. The sound of her crying was painfully familiar. It had the exact tone of my younger sister, Annie, and the sobs I heard through the hallway that mother took her last breath. The day that mother took her last breath. Annie, where was she? Was she in some dark forest with a gun to her head? A pain ripped through my side, forcing me to stop. The girl's feet quickly approached. I resumed walking. Thank you, she chirped from behind. The sun disappeared, and the cold tightened its fist. My calculations told me that I needed to walk another 2 kilometers west before stopping for the night. There was a better chance of finding shelter along a field road, but also a better chance of running into troops. It was wiser to continue along the edge of the forest. The girl heard them before I did. She grabbed my arm. The buzzing of aircraft engines surged fast and close from behind. The Russians were targeting Germans' ground troops nearby. Were they in front of us or beside us? The bombs began flying. The bombs began falling. With each explosion, every bone in my body vibrated and hammered, clinging violently against the bell tower that was my flesh. The sound of anti-aircraft fire ran through the sky, answering the initial blast. The girl tried to pull me onward. I shoved her away. Run! She shook her head, pointing forward, and awkwardly tried to pull me through the snow. I wanted to run, forget about her, leave her in the forest. But then I saw the droplets of blood in the snow coming from beneath her bulky coat, and I could not. Amelia. He wanted to leave me. His race was his own. Who was this German boy, old enough to be in Regiment, yet dressed in civilian clothes? For me, he was a conqueror, a sleeping knight, like in the stories Mama used to tell. Polish legend told of a king and his brave knights who lay asleep within mountain I'm so sorry, cavern caverns, whatever. If the Polish was in distress, the knights would awaken and come to the rescue. I told myself that the handsome young man was a sleeping knight. He moved forward, his pistol at the ready. He was leaving. Why did everyone leave me? The swarm of planes swooped overhead. The buzzing in my ears made me dizzy. A bomb fell, and then another. The earth trembled, threatening to open its jaws and eat us. I tried to catch up to him, ignoring the pain and ignorantly blah, 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 beneath my coat. I had neither the time nor courage to describe why I couldn't run. Instead, I told myself to walk as fast as I could through the snow. The night ran ahead of me, darting in and out of the trees, clutching his side, wrenched with pain. Strength drained from my legs, I thought of the Russians approaching, his pistol on my neck in the earthen cellar, and I willed my feet to move. I waddled like a duck through the deep snow. Then suddenly, the sweat sound of uh, Mama's nursery rhymes began in my head. All the little duckies with their heads in the water, heads in the water. All the little duckies with their beads in the water. Oh, such sweet little duckies. Where were all the duckies now? Alfred, Frick, what are you doing? Restocking ammunition, Restocking ammunition, sir. I pretended to fumble with something on the shelf. That's not your assignment, said the officer. You're needed at the port, not in a supply closet. The order will be the order will be issued. We have to be ready. We'll be assigning every available vessel. If we get stuck here, some murderer from Moscow will make you his girlfriend. Do you want that? Certainly not. I did not want a glimpse of the Soviet forces. Their path of destruction lay large and wide. Panic, Panicked villagers spilled stories in the street of Russian soldiers wearing necklaces made from the teeth of children. And now Russia's army was headed right towards us with their allies. America and England blowing wind into Stalion's sail. I had to get on a ship. Sorry. Remaining in the Haven meant certain death. I said, Do you want to become Moscow's girlfriend? Barked the officer. No, sir. Then take your things and get to the port. You'll receive further instructions once you get there. I paused, wondering if I should pilfer anything from the supply closet. What are you waiting for, Frick? Get out of here, you pathetic slug. Why, yes, Hamlor, the uniform. It suits me quite well. If time allowed, I would have a photograph made for your for your bedside table. But alas, leisure time proves sacred here for valiant men. On top of her heroism, it seems I will soon be promised. Oh, certainly, darling. You can tell everyone in the neighborhood. Jonah. The wandering boy found a deserted barn a ways off the road. We decided to settle there for the night. We had been walking for days, and both strength and morale waned. The bombs had nets set nerves on the edge. I'm sorry. The bombs had set nerves on edge. I moved from body to body, treating blisters, wounds, frostbite. But I had no treatment for what plagued people the most: fear. Germany had invaded Russia in 1941. For the past 4 years, the country had committed unspeakable atrocities, but not only against each other, but against innocent civilians in their path. Stories had been whispered by those we passed on the road. Hitler was exterminating millions of Jews and had an expanding list of undesirables who were being killed and imprisoned. Stalin was destroying the people of Poland, Ukraine, and the Baltics. The brutality was shocking. Disgraceful acts of inhumanity. No one wanted to fall into the hands of the enemy. but it was growing harder to distinguish who the enemy was. An old German man had pulled me aside a few days older. Do you have any poison? People are asking for it, he said. I will not administer poison, I replied.
The food's ready.
Okay, thank you. Sorry. I understand, but you're a pretty girl. If Russia's army overtakes us, you will want some for yourself. I wasn't sure how much was exaggeration and how much was true, but I had seen things. A girl, dead in a ditch, her skin knotted high, an old woman sobbing that they had burned her cottage. Terror was out there, and it had chased us. So we ran west towards part of Germany not yet occupied, and now we all sat in an abandoned barn, trying to create a fire for warmth. I removed my gloves and kneaded my chapped hands. For 4 years, I had worked with the surgeon at the hospital in Insterburg. As the war raged and the staff dwindled, I moved from stocking supplies to assisting him in surgery. You have steady hands, Jonah, and a strong stomach. You'll do well in medicine, he had told me. Medicine. That had been my dream. I was studious, dedicated, perhaps overly so. My last boyfriend said I preferred studies to him. Before I could prove it wasn't true, he had found another girl. I tried to massage warmth in my stiff fingers. My hands didn't concern me, but the supplies did. There wasn't much left. I had hoped the dead woman on the side of the road might have something: thread, tea, even a handkerchief. But nothing was clean. Everything was filthy, especially my conscience. Okay, bye, love you. Sorry. Um, we all looked up when they entered the barn. A young man carried a pistol, followed by a short blonde girl in braids and a pink hat. They were both haggard. The girl's face was red with exertion. A young man's face was also flushed. He had a fever. Florian. Others had beaten us there. A tethering collection of weathered horse carts was tucked beyond the brush, a sober portrait of the trek towards freedom. I would have preferred an abandoned site, but I knew I couldn't continue. The Polish girl pulled at my sleeve. She stopped in the snow, staring at the possessions outside the barn, evaluating the contents and whom they might belong to. There was no evidence of military. I think okay, she said. We walked inside. A group of 15 or 20 people sat huddled around a small fire. Their faces turned as I slipped in and stood near the door. Mothers, children, and elderly, all exhausted and broken. The Polish girl went straight to a vacant corner and sat down, wrapping her arms tightly around her chest. A young woman walked up to me. Are you injured? I have medical training. Her German was fluent, but not native. I didn't answer. I didn't need to speak to anyone. Do you have any food to share? What I had was no one's business. Does she have any food? She asked, pointing to the Polish girl walking in the corner. Her eyes looked a bit wild. I spoke without looking at her. She was in the forest. A Russian cornered her. She followed me here. She has a couple potatoes. Now leave me alone, I said. The young woman winced at the mention of Russian. She left my side and headed quickly towards the girl. I found a solitary spot away from the group and sat down. I lodged my pack against the barn wall and carefully reclined on it. Would it have been warmer if I sat near the fire with the others? It would have been warmer if I sat near the fire with the others, but I couldn't risk it. No conversations. I ate a small piece of sausage from the dead Russian, and watched the young woman as she tried to speak with the girl from the forest. Others called out to her for help. She must have been a nurse. She looked a few years older than me. Pretty. Naturally pretty. the type that's still attractive, even more so when she's filthy. Everyone in the barn was filthy. The stench of exertion, failed bladders, and most of all, fear, stunk stunk worse than any livestock. The nurse girl would have turned my back in the Konsingberg. I closed my eyes. I didn't want to look at the pretty girl. I needed to be able to kill her. Kill all of them, if I had to. My body begged for sleep, but my mind warned me to not trust these people. I felt a nudge at my feet and opened my eyes. You didn't mention she was Poland, said the nurse. And the Russian? She asked. He's taken care of, I told her. I need to sleep. She knelt down beside me. I could barely hear her. What you need to show me is that wound you're trying to hide. Amelia. I thought of the carts outside the barn. They towered with the belonging of refugees. Trunks, suitcases, and furniture. There was even a sewing machine like Mama's. Why aren't you making any dresses? I remember asking Mama from my sunny perch in our kitchen. Mama turned to me from her sewing machine. Can you keep a secret? I nodded eagerly, moving toward her. She put her hands on my wide belly and smiled. She put her hands on her wide belly and smiled. I think it's a boy. I just know it's a boy. She hugged me close, her warm lips against my forehead. And you know what? You're going to be the best big sister ever, Amelia. And now I sat in a freezing barn, alone, so far from home. These people had time to pack. I wasn't able to pack. I left my entire life chewed to pieces. Who was using Mama's sewing machine now? The knight hadn't wanted me to come inside. What was his name? Who was he running from? I had examined the carts and belongings, evaluating the items and the potential owners to determine if it was safe to enter, but we had no choice. Sleeping outside meant certain death. I sat in a corner and stuffed straw into my clothes for warmth. Once I stopped moving, the pain subsided. I buried my face in my hands. A hand touched my shoulder. Are you all right? I looked up to see a young woman above me. She spoke in German, but with an accent. Her brown hair was pulled behind her ears. Her face was kind. Are you injured? She asked. I tried to control it. I fought it, but then a single tear rolled down my cheek. She moved in close. Where does it hurt? She whispered. I have medical training. I pulled my coat tight around me and shook my head. No danke. The girl cocked her head slightly. My accents had given me away. Dish Duce? She whispered. I said nothing. The others stared at me. If I gave them my food, would they perhaps leave me alone? I pulled a potato from my coat pocket and handed it to her. A potato for silence. Jonah. The arrival of the German and the young girl made me uneasy. Neither spoke openly. The girl's eyes darted with trauma and her shoulders trembled. I walked over to Ava. Ava was in her 50s and giant, like a Viking. Her feet and hands were larger than any man's. In some in our group call her Sorry Eve because she often said appealing things but inserted the word sorry before or after, as if it softened the sting. Ava, you speak a little bit of Polish, don't you? I whispered. Not that you know of, she replied. I'm not going to tell anyone. That poor girl is suffering. I think she's Polish. Will you try and speak to her? Convince her to let me help. Who's the German she came in with, and why isn't he in a uniform? We don't have permission to evacuate. If Hitler's henchmen find us with a deserter, we'll all be shot in the head. Sorry, said Ava. We don't know that he's a deserter. I don't know who he is, but he's injured. He found the girl in the forest. I lowered my voice. cornered by a Russian. Ava's face blanched. How far from here? She asked. I don't know. Please try to talk to her, get some information. Ava's husband was too old to serve in the military, but had been recruited from Volkssturm, the People's Army. Hitler was now desperate and had called up all the remaining men and boys, but somehow the young man on the other side of the room had not been a part of the recruitment. Why? Ava's husband had insisted that she trek to the west. He was certain Hitler was going to lose and that Russia would occupy East Prussia and destroy everything in the process. In school, we were told that East Prussia was one of the most beautiful regions, but it had proven treacherous for It had proven treacherous for those of us fleeing, bordered to the north by Lithuania and to the south by Poland. It was a land of deep lakes and dark forests. Ava's plan was the same as the rest of ours: trek to unoccupied Germany and reunite with family after the war ended. For now, I tended to people in the barn as best as I could. Many had fallen asleep as soon as they sat down. Their feet, the shoes poet gently reminded as I passed him, make sure to treat their feet or all is lost. And what about our feet? I asked. The poet's short frame was concrete, like he had caught a large ball and never put it down. I could walk 1,000 miles, my dear. He grinned. Excellent shoes. Ava pulled me aside. You're right. Polish. Her name is Amelia. She's 15. From Lwów. But she has no papers. Where's Lwów? I asked. In southern eastern Poland. The Galicia region. It made sense. Some Galicians had blonde hair and blue eyes, like the girl. Her Iran look might protect her from the Nazis. Her father is some math professor and sent her to East Persia where she might be safer. She ended up working on a farm. Ava lowered her voice. Near Nermansdorf. No, I whispered. Ava nodded. She wouldn't talk about it. Just said she fled through Nermansdorf and had been on the run. Nermansdorf. Everyone knew the rumors. A few months ago, the Russians stormed the village and reportedly committed vicious acts of brutality. Women were nailed to barn doors. Children mutilated. The news of the massacre had spread quickly and sent people into a panic. Many packed up instantly and began to move west, terrified that the villagers would be next to fall into the hands of Stalin's armies. And this young girl had been there. Poor thing, I whispered to Ava, and the Germans told me a Russian had found her in the forest. Where's the Russian now? Said Ava, full of concern. I think he killed him. My heart ached for the girl. What had she seen? And deep down, I knew the truth. Hitler was pushing out Polish girls like Amelia to make room for Baltic Germans, people with German heritage, like me. My father was Lithuanian, my mother had German roots. That's why we were able to feel from Stalin into the barbed arms of Hitler. You know, I think it could be worse, said Ava. What do you mean? My husband told me that Hitler suspected the Polish intellectuals of anti-Nazi activity. The senior professor in Lwów, they were all executed. So the girl's father, sorry, but he was probably strangled with piano wire and stop, Ava. We can't bring this girl with us. Her coat is splattered with blood. She's clearly in trouble, and she's Polish. And I'm Lithuanian. Are you going to toss me out too? I was sick of it, sick of hearing the phrase German only. Could we really turn our backs on innocent homeless children? They were victims, not soldiers, but I knew others felt differently. I looked over at the girl in the corner, tears streaking her filthy face. She was 15 and alone. The tears reminded me of someone. The memory opened a small door in my mind, and the dark voice slipped through it. It's all your fault. Florian. I watched as the girl. I watched as the girl. I watched as the girl nurse moved from person to person, treating one with items she carried in a brown leather case. I had a fever and knew I had to get rid of it to continue. The wound extended too far beyond my side for me to see or reach. I didn't need to trust her. I would never see her again. She looked my way and nodded. Reconsidered? She asked. When everyone's asleep, I whispered. It didn't take long. The cold barn was soon full of twitching muscles and nasal whinies. The nurse cooked a potato over the fire and ate it. She ate slowly, neatly, placing small bites in her mouth, patient and patient despite her hunger. She was highborn, then brought her bag, then brought her bag over to me. Bullet wound? She whispered. I shook my head. I slowly pulled off the sleeve of my coat, biting back the winds. I lay on my side, my head turned from her. She peeled my sticky shirt from the mass of concealed blood. She didn't gasp or cry like other girls did when they saw something gruesome. She didn't make a sound. Maybe nurses were used to it. I looked over my shoulder to see she was still there. Her face was an inch from the wound. She examined it intently, and then leaned forward and whispered something in my right ear. Shrapnel. About 2 days ago. You stopped the bleeding by applying pressure, but that pushed the fragments deeper, causing more pain. It's infected. You poured liquid on it at some point. Vodka. Her voice resumed in my ear. There are a couple pieces I want to take them out. I don't have any anesthetic. Do you have anything to drink? I asked. Yes, but I'll need the alcohol to clean the room before I dress it. I felt her hand on my shoulder. I should do this now, before the infection becomes too advanced. Small boots appeared in front of my face. The Polish girl knelt in front of me with snow wrapped in a handkerchief. She swept my hair aside and pressed the cold compress to my forehead. Go away, I told her. Wait. The nurse looked to the Polish girl. Could you please go outside and find a large stick? The girl nodded and left. The nurse then sat down in front of me. I watched her mouth as she whispered. Her name is Amelia. She's from southern Poland. Her father sent her away for safety. Near Nemensdorf. Holy hell. I breathed. She nodded and opened her bag. I'm Jonah. I worked as a physician's assistant for a few years. I'm not German. I'm Lithuanian. Is that a problem? I don't care what you are. Have you done this before? I've done similar procedures. What's your name? She asked. I paused. What should I tell her? What's the stick for? She ignored my question and returned to hers. What's your name? The fever burned, making me weak and dizzy. My name. I was named for a 16th century painter my mother adored. No, I would not tell her. No conversations. The nurse sighed. You'll need the stick to bite down on. This is going to hurt. I closed my eyes. Florian, I wanted to say. I'm Florian. And I'll be dead soon. Amelia. The giant woman, Eve, told me that the nurse girl was Lithuanian. Her name was Jonah. She seemed kind, but how could I be sure? If she was going to treat the night, I felt I should stand watch. I owed him a debt now, didn't I? He told me to go away. His voice was in the chorus of those who wanted the pools to disappear forever. After three through Nerman's door, sorry, I met an old woman from Lwów on the road. Her eyes stormed with death. She told me the Nazis had killed thousands of Polish Jews in the Ugh, thousands of Polish Jews in Lwów. The Weagles? I asked. Gone. My voice fell into a whisper. The Lempols? Why do you keep asking? I told you, they're all dead. Probably hundreds of thousands. Why was I asking? Because Rachel and Helen were my friends. When father sent me away to East Persia, they sneaked over the night before and brought me sweets and gifts. Dead. How could she say it with such finality? I didn't want to believe it. The pretty Lithuanian girl, Jonah, had told me to find a larger stick. I walked outside the barn. Wind and snow lashed my face. Every moment felt awkward in my layers and bulky coat. Should I confide in Jonah? Maybe she could help me. But I knew what would happen. She would be disgusted. I heard a noise and looked up. That's where I saw it. Perched on top of the barn was the largest nest I had ever seen. Alfred. Hello, dear Himmler. How writing or just thinking your name alters my mood. Sometimes I lie on my cot and whisper it oh so slowly into the darkness. Lore. Little Lore. It is late evening. I imagine you at home, finger twirling in your hair while reading one of your beloved books. Perhaps the snow falls there as it does here. Holman Heidelberg. I'm sorry, Heidelberg. I'm just gonna say Heidelberg. Holman Heidelberg feels so far away, buffered by distance. I feel compelled to share a secret. Perhaps it is naughty of me to mention, but did you ever realize your kitchen window stands opposite of our laundry window on the main floor? I could I could often smell your mother's duck in the oven from our bathroom. Yes, I frequently watched you eating your breakfast before school. Oh, do not be embarrassed, Lore. Neighbors share close quarters. We often shared more. Those memories, they are coals that shield my heart from frost. But time for reflections is scant. Relaxation is non-existent for a brave man of the Creation Marine, Craig's Marine. As you know, I'm quite an accomplished watchman. Attention to detail has always been one of my great strengths. Hence, I am making more of everything to report to you. There is word of a massive naval evacuation, and we are preparing at the port. I will finally be at sea, reversing the waterways into the ocean like adventures you love to read about in your precious novels. And it will be an adventure, Lore. People are already arriving at the port to stand in line for one of the big ships. Some have carried all of their earthly belongings with them, piled high upon horse-drawn carts and sleds. Expensive rugs, clocks, china, chairs, they had bought it all. Certainly and there won't be space enough and some items will be denied. I saw a lovely crystal butterfly on a cart today. I brought you instantly to mind. How your dark silken hair floats like winds of gossamer. If the butterfly is not permitted on board, I have decided I will keep it. Redistribution to those who are worthy makes the most sense. Your kind heart would break if you saw the people at the port. They are weary and filthy from their long trek. From, yeah, some have escaped from countries as far as I'm sorry, as far away as Estrona. Can you imagine? Stallion had stolen more than land. Hannelore, he had stole human dignity. I see it in their foreign eyes and broken posture. It's all the fault of the communists. They are animals. And now Stallion's army is closing in and people are panicking. No, no, fear not. I'm quite confident and assured of my abilities. After all, a human being cannot be trained for these situations. He must be born for them. And thanks to God, I was that. I rolled over and slid my duffel out from beneath the cot. I reached inside for my well worn copy of Hitler's book, Mein Kampf, and spotted the writing paper Mutter had given to me. Writ- writ- and spotted the writing paper Mutter had given to me. Perhaps tomorrow I would actually put pen to paper. Jonah. I lit a match to sterilize the scalpel and began talking. The doctor in Innsbruck taught me that talking to patients often calmed them. When Stalin occupied Lithuania, my family fled, I said. My mother had Germany heritage, so Hitler allowed us to repatriate and come to Germany. I only got as far as Innsbruck. Innsbruck is in East Persia, he said. So Hitler is your savior? So Hitler, he's your savior? He didn't say more, but his sarcastic snort spoke for him. He was either critical of the Nazi Party, critical for me, critical of me for repeat training, or for perpetrating, or both. I didn't need his criticism. I carried enough guilt on my own. I had done everything wrong. I had the highest marks in school, but couldn't master common sense. I know, it's cold, but let's remove your coat entirely and have you lie on your stomach, I told him. As I pulled off the sleeve, his pale green identity card peeked out from his interior jacket pocket. Perfect. He wouldn't tell me his name. I take a look for myself. I'm going to press the surrounding area of the wound to see how far the infection has spread. He didn't respond. Tell me when it hurts. I pressed around the perimeter of his wound with one hand, making note of tender areas with my other hand. I tried to wiggle the papers from his coat pocket. Stop. The ferocity of his command made me jump. Hand me my papers. You heard me. Now. He reached back and I placed the identity card in his hand. In the folded paper. It's also in the pocket, he said. I pulled out the cream sheet of paper, trying to get a look at it. I couldn't see through the fold. He snatched it and slid under his chest. Amelia returned, carrying a stick. White flakes glistened atop her pink hat. It's snowing again? I asked. She nodded. That would inhibit our progress tomorrow. Let's get this over with, said the patient. His tolerance for pain exceeded anything I had seen. He bit the stick, not out of necessity, but in defiance. Amelia was an attentive assistant, anticipating both my needs and his, but she appeared so fatigued, and so I sent her back to her corner to rest. She didn't sleep. She watched my every move. The final of shrapnel was lodged deep. My knuckles disappeared as I reached the inside of the room for it. I was concerned about gangrene, but didn't mention it. The pain was enough for him to contend with. I leaned down and whispered, I think I got it all. It was deep. The wound is wide. I'm going to wake the shoemaker and have him sew it up. He's probably got a tighter stitch. He spit he spit out the stick. No, you do it. He paused. Please. I looked at the open wound. Poe had sewed a lot of leather and would seam it cleaner than I could. But if flesh bothered the old man, it would only make things worse. I sewed and dressed the wound, so I didn't see your papers, but I did spy cigarettes in your pockets, I told him, wiping my hands. You didn't tell me there was a fee. He looked at me, eyes flickering like gas lamps. His potential of pain, his face spoke of pain, physical pain like I had seen in the hospital, but also emotional pain like I had seen in my parents. He stared at me, his eyes slowly traveling over my face. There are matches in the same pocket, he finally said. I pulled out a cigarette and ran it through my fingers, trying to straighten it. I lit the end and sucked a grateful drag. The hot smoke warmed my cold chest. I leaned towards him and gently put the cigarette to his lips, allowing him to inhale. The glow of the tip illuminated his face. There were hints of handsome beneath the bruises and dirt. How old are you? I asked. Save the rest. They're hard to come by, he said, exhaling. I stubbed the cigarette out against my shoe and returned to his pocket. Do you want to see the sharpenel I removed? The sharpenel I removed? The big piece is neatly the size of a bottle cap. I reached over to show it to him. He grabbed my waist. Don't ever try to steal from me, he whispered. What are you talking about? I said, trying to pull away my grip. Trying to pull away. His grip tightened. You saw my papers. No, I didn't. Stop. You're hurting me. You know something about me. This wound. His voice was weak, but carried concern. Or was it really? He mumbled for a while. He mumbled for a while. Oh my gosh, I'm so sorry about all the times I keep mumbling and like messing up on my words and mispronouncing. Ugh. We're almost done. We have 6 more pages left after I finish this page. Or was it Derilium? He murmured for a while and then said, Tell me something about you. He released his grip slightly. You want to know something about me? I asked. I stared at his tired face. He waited. Eyelids beginning to droop. They fluttered closed and his fingers softly released my wrist. I watched him breathe for a while, his identity papers still tucked under his torso. He wanted to know something about me. I leaned over and put my mouth to his ear. It was hardly a whisper. I'm a murderer. Florian. The thoughts of the nurse girl followed me through sleep and lingered after I awoke. Did I dream that I spoke with her? It made me angry. With each day that passed, the threat mounted. Had they made the discovery in Konsonberg yet? I couldn't let a pretty girl sidetrack me. The barn was still dark, hollow with the emptiness of the displaced people it housed. My wristwatch said it was approaching 4 a.m. I pulled myself to a sitting position, gritting my teeth to fight the pain. My pack was untouched, my papers beneath me. I returned the documents to my jacket and got to my feet. I took a couple of steps toward the barn door and the blind girl sat up, her milky eyes blinking. The nurse slept next to her, her suitcase open. Pretty brown hair scrambled around her face. What did she say? Her name was No, it didn't matter. She was ugly. That's what I told myself. I knelt and rummaged through the nurse's suitcase. The blind girl's nose rose towards the roof. She rotated her head and stared straight at me. What could she see? Were her eyes frosted over like an icy window, allowing light and dark to filter through? Or was her world curtained black? My hand slightly shifted through the nurse's belongings. What was I doing? This girl had possibly saved me for a single drag of a cigarette. I told myself it wasn't stealing, it was protection. I sorted through clothes, a medical book, the fork she had eaten the potato with. Then I pulled out something unexpected. I looked at the nurse's loose brown curls for a moment, slipped the item into my jacket pocket, and left. There were Russians in the wood. I knew that already. Most likely scouts or drifters who had been separated from their unit. I could handle one soldier, but how long before full troops swarmed the area? Originally, I had 2 weeks to get to the port. That was the plan. I'd get on a ship, sail to west, and then the mission would be accomplished. Once outside the barn, I reorganized my pack. I saw a letter with my identity card and couldn't brush it from my mind. Dr. Lane. Dr. Lange was the director of the museum in Konsberg and had hired me to a restoration apprentice. Trained me, even sent me to the best school. I looked up to him and wrote detailed letters from the institute, sharing all of my thoughts on art and philosophy. Dr. Lange claimed I was brilliant. He said that my talents would provide Germany with great service that would bring f- fuse, uh, the first dreams of a national art museum in his hometown of Linz to fruition. Then Dr. Lang introduced me to Galtier Galtier Erch Koch. Koch. Koch was the leader of the regional branch of the Nazi Party. He was also a monster. Then the belted crates of art started arriving at the museum. Dr. Lange's enthusiasm was infectious. Some pieces made him weep. At times, I had to study him as a new edition was unveiled. He would he would put me to work immediately when each crate arrived. Sometimes I worked through the night on a restoration so Dr. Lane could report coach to the report to coach the very next day. I went without sleep, without eating, even missed my father's birthday to complete the task and please Dr. Lane. We make a great team, don't we, Florian? I said. He would say, grinning. One morning, Dr. Lane set me searching for a roll of misplaced twine. While looking, I found all of my letters to him from the Institute, carelessly thrown in a bottom drawer with ink and supplies. My letters were unopened. He hadn't even cared to read them. A voice rose behind me in the dark, pulling me from my thoughts. I grasped my pistol and reeled around. Wait, please. The girl, pink and out of breath, ran towards me in the snow. Amelia. I could not trust the people in the barn. The giant woman recoiled when she learned I was Polish, so I willed my legs to move faster, telling myself that once I told the knight my story, he would understand. He would know what I had done for his country. He would protect me. My stomach complained. Would the hunger ever fade? Retreat and when the hunger Would the hunger ever fade? Retreat in a kind and gentle way to stop its constant knocking? I couldn't remember not being fearful and hungry, but my stomach didn't feel pulled with yearning. My mental pictures of Luau seemed to be fading, like a photograph left outside in the sun. Lwów, the city that always smiled, a place of education and culture in Poland. How much of Lwów would survive? The giant knight's silhouette came into view and inspired me to move faster. I called out and he turned. Aim gun. Wait. Gun aim. Wait, please. I said, I'm coming with you. He turned away from me, then continued on his path. I followed his fresh tracks in the snow and felt stronger. The January morning air sharp and the crisp in my nostrils. And the crisp in my nostrils. I kept walking, following. After several meters, he stopped and turned furious. Go away! No, I protested. It's safer for you to stay with the others, he said. Safer? He didn't realize. I was already dead. Jonah. Mornings held the promise of progress, jangling hope with thoughts of the next stop. We all fantasized of more than a barn. The shoe poet talked of grand manors owned by Junkers, wealthy East Persian aristocrats. The countryside was dotted with their estates and were bound to come upon one. Poet said he had visited one such manor house prior to the war and thought it was close by. We dreamed the wealthy family would take us in, ladle thick soup into porcelain bowls, and let us warm our frozen toes by the fire. Poet walked around the barn, tapping the bottoms of people's feet with his walking stick. The wandering boy followed. Time to rise. Feet are strongest in the morning, he said the shoemaker. He arrived in front of me, still in fine shape, those boots. Any blistered? No, poet. I stood up and brushed myself off. Is everyone ready to go? The German deserter and the runaway Pole are gone, he announced. They all thought he was a deserter. My mind flashed to him snapping the identity card and letter from my hand. I'm surprised he felt well enough to move on so early. His boots were military issue, but modified, said the shoe poet. He sighed, shaking his round head of white hair. This war. Do you realize that young people are fighting on tiny islands in the Pacific Island and marching through the deserts of North Africa? We are freezing and they are dying of heat. So many unfortunate children. The young Polish girl was exhausted. Her feet were swollen, rising like yeast buns in those boots. But sadly, it's a problem for the best. We don't want them caught among our group. If my mind still serves as well as my feet, we come upon the estate before nightfall. No one will let us in with a deserter and a Pole. Of course it's for the best, said Ava. A deserter and a Pole? I'm sorry, but they'll be dead on the road in the day. Oh my, you're a blister, Ava. A sour little blister. The shoe poet laughed and shook his walking stick at her. Okay. That's the first week done. That's took so long. And I have to film you 8 weeks, but that's okay. I'm going to put your bookmark in the front because you will still start in the front, but all these videos will be recorded soon, and I'm so sorry for all the mispronunciations and all the times that I kept messing up. I just don't and I'm also really stuffy, so I'm sorry about that. But yeah, I love you, and you'll listen to the new video soon. Okay, bye.